Masechet Sanhedrin Daf Ayin Zayin. The Mishnah mentioned that if someone's in the water and I hold his head down so that he suffocates in the water, then I am liable. That was the Resha. However, the Sefa says if I push someone into the water and he has the possibility of getting out, but then for some reason he doesn't get out and he dies. Maybe I push him into water. A normal person should be able to get out. He slips and falls and then he drowns. Well, in that case, it's not directly my fault. Although it's true, he wouldn't have drowned if I didn't push him in the water. But at the time that I pushed in the water, that didn't kill him because he could have gotten out. For some reason, he didn't get out, so that's only indirect, and I am not liable to capital punishment as a murderer. That was the teaching of the Mishnah. Gemara analyzes and compares these two laws. V'chavash alav letoch hamayim, resha rebuta kamashmalan, v'sefa rebuta kamashmalan. When I pulled someone underwater, that was the Resha. The Resha teaches us a new law, and the Sefa also teaches us a new law. I will not be able to derive one from the other. Resha rebuta kamashmalan, afa gav delav ihu dechafo, kevan de'en yachol la'alot misham v'met hayav. And the Resha, even though I did not push the guy in, he was already in the water. He was swimming around. He was dunking, jumping, whatever he was doing, swimming in the water. But I held him down. Let's say he even went underwater himself. And then I held his head down and he drowned because he can't get out. That's the key factor. I made it such that he cannot get out. And then he dies directly because I am holding his head underwater. Then I am liable to capital punishment. And the latter part of the Mishnah also teaches us a new principle that even though I pushed him in, but at the time I pushed him in, it was possible for him to get out. Some reason later on he wasn't able to get out and he died. That's not directly my fault, and therefore I do not get capital punishment. Kavash min delan, Amar Shemuel damar kera o be'eva lerabot et hamesamsem. How do I know that holding someone underwater, restricting his movement, is called murder? It's not the typical form of murder. Typical form of murder is I stab someone or hit them, and here they're technically dying by drowning. I'm just not letting them come up for air. So that's still considered directly murder. How do I know that? Shemuel says from the extra word here, oh. If we look in the pasuk that talks about the punishment for a murder, if someone out of hatred goes and kills someone, oh be'eva, or out of enmity he hits him. So this oh be'eva, that word, it could have said im be'eva, then mot yumat hamakeh roseyachu. So from these words, we learn not only if I kill the person directly by stabbing them, but also if I restrict them to a place where they will surely die and they cannot get out. Hahu gavra dim samsemma lechevata dechabre beshimsha vameta ravina mechayev ravacha bar rav patar. And now this will be true for killing an animal also, which do you have to pay compensation for that or not? Is it directly my fault? So we're going to compare the laws of damages to an animal to laws of murder. So there was a certain person, he confined the animal of someone else in the sun where it was very hot and it died from the heat. And Ravina said that the person that restricted the animal's movement is liable to pay for the animal. And Ravacha bar Rav says, no, patur, it's indirect. The sun that killed him. I didn't kill him just because I didn't let him move. So let's see. What's their arguments? Ravina mechayev. Kal vachomer, umar rosech shelo asa bo shogeg kemezid, v'ones kerason, chayev bo et hamsamsem, nizakin she'asa bahem shogeg kemezid, v'ones kerason, enodin shechayev bahem et hamsamsem. Interesting, kal vachomer, Ravina says. In the case of murder, where the Torah does not equate someone who does something unintentionally with intentionally, or beyond what circumstances with someone who does it on purpose. Regarding murder, it makes a big difference. If I do it on purpose, then liable to capital punishment. If I was a little bit negligent, but I didn't intend to do it, then I have to go to Ira Miklat. If it was a total accident, totally beyond my control, then there's no punishment at all. So regarding murder, intention matters. And yet in that case, if I intentionally hold the person in a place of danger, then I am liable, as we just said, if I hold the person underwater. So if that's true regarding murder, where intention does make a difference, then when it comes to damage, in damages, there is no difference if I damage someone intentionally or not. Even if it's by mistake, I mistakenly step on your flowers, I didn't realize that this was your garden, I mistakenly crash into your car, right? I didn't intend to, but I lost control. By mistake, I go into your car. I can't say, oh, it was a mistake, I didn't intend to do it, I don't have to pay. No, when it comes to damages, whether it's intentional or shogeg or even something beyond my control, I still am liable. So there's more liability in damages than there is in murder. So therefore, all the more so that if I cause damage to your animal by keeping it in the sun and not letting it leave out of the sun and it dies from sunstroke, then I would be liable. So that's a very important kal vachomer, and also a very, very important distinction between damages where it doesn't matter if I intended to do it or not. I'm always liable if I'm the cause of the damage. And that's not true in murder, where it's only if I did it on purpose. So that's the kal vachomer. Rav Acha bar Rav poter. However, the other opinion says not so. Patur, and when I put your animal in the sun, Amar Rav Mishashia, my tama de Abba de poter. Rav Mishashia, what's the reason of my father's father? That was Rav Acha bar Rav. Why did he say exempt in that case? Amar Kera mot yumat hamaker oseachu. The pasuk that we just quoted, beroseachu dechayev lan mesamsem bin zakin lo chayev lan mesamsem. And you see that pasuk that says he shall die because he is a murderer, so that's limiting the law only to a murderer. That's the exact pasuk that we learned, O be'eva, that came to include, even though I'm not killing the person totally directly, I'm not actually stabbing the person, but I'm just putting them in a place where a dangerous thing, fire or water, will kill him, because that is killing him immediately. That's considered murder. But that those extra words, O be'eva, is only found in this pasuk, and this pasuk says O be'eva because he is a murderer. So that means I'm only liable in that situation for murder. But if I do the same thing to someone's animal, where it's not murder, it's just paying damages, then the Torah does not say anything about including this restriction of movement in the liability for damages, and therefore one is not liable to pay damages if you leave your animal if I make your animal stay in a dangerous place. Amar Rava, kefato umet bara'av patur. Now we're going to see, Rava is going to say many statements about this. Rava had a lot to teach about this issue. So if I go and I tie someone up and I don't feed him and he dies of starvation, then I am not liable to capital punishment. Although I did kill him, and it doesn't mean it's allowed. It's certainly not allowed to do that, and I would be liable to other punishments like mitabi de shamayim, because I caused the person to die. However, it's not a direct cause. I tied him up, and it's true he's not going to have he's going to starve eventually. But right now he's not starving. When I tie him up, he can last a day or two without food. And so, since I'm not killing him directly, I'm just not allowing him to get food. And eventually, starvation will kill him. But right now, he's not starving. So therefore, that's not called directly killing him. And there's no liability to capital punishment. On the other hand, if I tie up someone and leave them out in the hot sun or leave them out in the cold and they die of the heat or they die of the cold, I am liable. Why? What's the difference? Because at the time that I tie him up, it's already cold. The cold is already there, or the sun is already beating on him. So the thing that is going to kill him is already present when I tie him up. So therefore, that's called direct. Different from when not having food. Right now, he's not starving when I tie him up. He's not dying of hunger right now, only later on. Sof chama lavo, sof sina lavo, patur. The case of the hunger is more like this last case. If I tie him up, let's say in the shade. Shade, it's a nice day, no problem. He could stay there. He's not going to die from that. And then the sun comes out. and he dies from the sun. Or right now it's nice out, it's during the day, and then I tie him up and put him there. But later on at night it gets very cold and he dies from the cold. I am exempt from capital punishment because, again, at the time that I tied him up, the thing that will kill him was not yet present. So therefore that's not called directly killing him, it's indirectly killing him, but indirect killing does not get capital punishment. If I tie someone up and put him in front of a lion and the lion kills him, I am exempt from capital punishment. But if I put him in front of mosquitoes, then I am liable. What's the difference? Well, a lion doesn't always kill someone. It depends how hungry he is, how delicious you are, and so on. So sometimes he kills and eats, sometimes not. Therefore, it's not for sure going to happen. That's not directly killing him. I did put the person in a bad situation, but I can't be considered liable because it's not for sure going to happen. Whereas mosquitoes definitely will bite a person, and if they're all tied up, they'll eventually bite him to death. And the mosquitoes are always going to bite, and therefore that is, and they're here and they're present right now, and therefore that is direct killing and is liable to capital punishment. Rav Ashi Amar, afilu lifnei yitushin name patur, hane azle v'hane atu. Rav Ashi says even if I tie someone up and put him in front of mosquitoes, also I am not liable to capital punishment because first, one group of mosquitoes bite him, but they don't kill him, that first group, and they leave, they're full. Then another group comes and bites him, and this is the second group or later group that comes that will actually bite him and cause him to die. So the mosquitoes that are here now, that when I tie the person up and put him there, are not the ones that kill him, and therefore this is more like the sun that comes afterwards and kills him, but it's not around now, and therefore the thing that kills him is not here now. Itmar kafa alav gigit ufara alav ma'azeva ravav Rabbi Zera chad amar chayav echad amar patur. What if I take a vat and I turn it over a person and stick him in there and he dies of suffocation because there's not too much air inside a barrel? Or he's in a room and I make a hole in the ceiling, I breach the plaster, and now the elements, the sun or the cold, come in and kill him, and he can't get out. So what about that case? So Rava and Rabbi Zera, we don't know who says which one, but one of them says liable and one of them says not liable. So let's try to figure out which one is which. Tistayem de Rava Huda amar patur, damar Rava kefato umet bara'av patur. It makes sense that Rava would be the lenient one and say not liable to capital punishment because he said right above, we just saw his statement, that if I tie someone up and don't give him food and they die of starvation, I am not liable because this happens after time. The thing that's going to kill him is not here right now. And so that would be the same. I put the person in the barrel. In the barrel, there's some air, so it's not my problem. Oh, he ran out of air later. That's secondary. That happens only after time. Or the same thing with he's in the room, but there's a hole in the ceiling, so only eventually when it gets cold or hot, or the rain comes in and kills him, so that's later on. So that's the same as tying someone up and them dying of starvation. And that would mean that Rabbi Zera is the one that says liable. But then we ask, Adrabah, Tistayim de Rabbi Zera, Hu damar patur, damar Rabbi Zera, Hayman de ayele lechabre bebeta de shisha, v'adlik le sheraga vamet hayav, tamad adlik le sheraga, hala adlik le sheraga la. No, actually I can prove that Rabbi Zera is the one that's lenient and says not liable to capital punishment in the case of the turning the vat over a person, because Rabbi Zera says, now let's say I bring someone into a house of marble. The idea of being marble is that it's airtight. And I light a lamp in it, I light a fire in it, and then I close it up, and he's sealed shut inside a room that has a fire burning, and so the fire is going to make smoke, and he dies of smoke inhalation or lack of oxygen. He suffocates, and he dies. Rabbi Zera says one is liable. What do we see from here? Why am I liable? Not just because I put him into a marble airtight container room, but because I lit a fire, and it's the fire, the smoke of the fire that's killing him. So what if I put him in an airtight room but did not light a fire? then I would not be liable, because otherwise it'd be that there's no need to mention the fire if I would be liable even without the fire. So it means that Abizara thinks if I put someone in an enclosed space without any air and they die from suffocation, then I am not liable, because that's not called direct. So therefore, Abizara would be the author of the statement of an overturned vat. And we answer, no, the cases are different. Amre hatam belo sharga la matchil havla b'sha'ateh. Hacha belo sharga name matchil havla b'sha'ateh. In the case of the marble room, without the lamp, the atmosphere will not cause suffocation at that time, meaning it's a big room. And so there's a lot of air. Eventually the person will die, but it'll take a while. So therefore, since it'll take a while, that's not called direct killing. And therefore, the Bizara says, and Rava would certainly agree, that one is not liable. Whereas here, in the case of a vat is very small, only a very little air, and so the lack of oxygen, the suffocation happens basically immediately, and even without the fire making smoke and using up the oxygen, already the person is dying the second that I put them in the barrel. And so even though the Bizara says in a big room, one is not liable, but in a small barrel, he would say liable, and therefore it makes sense that the Bizara, one that says liable, and Rava says is the one that's lenient and says not liable. Okay, a few more statements by Rava. And the mnemonic is Siman Sulam Teri Samanin Be'kote, ladder shield herbs in a wall. Amar Rava, Dechafo labor ve'sulam babor, uba acher this is a wonderful case. I pushed someone down into a pit, and there is a ladder and he can get out from the ladder. If I would stop there, I would not be liable. I pushed him into the pit, but he can get out, so it wasn't a problem. But here, I push him in the pit, and then a second later, someone else comes and takes the ladder away. Now, when I pushed him in, the ladder was there, so I'm not liable. And then he took the ladder away. He just took the ladder away. He didn't push him in. And so, I am not liable. Afiluhu kadam v'silako patur. And even if it was the same person, I pushed him in with the ladder in there. So therefore, I didn't kill him because he has a ladder. And then, a second later, I take the ladder out. But I didn't push him in. So I'm not liable. I just took the ladder out. But so even though the same person did both actions, nevertheless, neither action by itself is what killed him. And therefore, I am not liable. At the time that I pushed him in, he was able to get out, and therefore I'm not liable. So, if you want to kill someone without being liable, do it in a two-step process. If I would push someone into a pit that had no ladder and he can't get out, that would be direct cause of death. But here, the pit is not the direct cause of death because he had a ladder. And so, I'm not liable when I pushed him in. Rava says, if I shoot an arrow at someone, this arrow is going to aim and would kill him. However, he's holding a shield. So at the time that I shoot an arrow at him, he has a shield, and therefore it's not going to kill him. I'm not liable to murder if I shoot someone and there's a shield in front of him. But then, 1 second later, a millisecond, before the arrow gets to him, someone pulls away his shield, and then it goes into his heart and kills him. Then the one who shot the arrow is patur. And even if the one who shot the arrow is the same person who went and took away the shield, right? I'm back there, I shoot an arrow at your heart, and then I run faster than the arrow and pull your shield. It's a little hard to do, but maybe with a rope. I attached a rope, and I pull the rope, and I pull your shield away from your body before the arrow gets there. I am not liable because at the time that I shot the arrow, there was a shield there, so that action would not have killed you. And then I took away something that would have blocked, but just taking something away, that's not a direct action that killed you. It's the arrow that killed you. Someone else shot the arrow, or I shot the arrow, but that was a different time. That was a whole second ago. And therefore, again, by splitting the action into two, so each action we judge by itself, and you can't be called me liable capital punishment for shooting the arrow, nor for taking away the shield and and therefore there is no capital punishment in Bet Din. Of course, we're just talking about a Bet Din giving him capital punishment. He will have other punishments, including mita b'de shamayim. Ve'amar Rava, zarak bo ches samanim biyado, uba cheru fizeran, ve'afilu hu kadam ufizeran patur, debleidana dishtabeh, yachol litrapeot hava. Rava says, if I shoot an arrow at you, and I shoot it, let's say, at your leg, and so, if you don't treat it, you'll bleed to death. But if you treat it, then you'll be okay. And you have a medicine. You have spices, you have herbs, you have bandages, you have whatever you need, and you can live. So at the time that I shoot the arrow at you, you have medicine and you can live, so therefore I'm not liable to capital punishment. However, after I shoot you, someone comes and takes away your medicine and spreads it all over the ground, and now you don't have any and you die. Well, that's not my problem. When I shot you, you had medicine, so I would not have killed you alone. And that guy, well, he just took away your medicine. So we're both patur, and even if I do both of them, I shoot you when you have medicine, and so although you'll have a wound, you won't die. And then I go and I take away the medicine, still I am not liable, because at the time that I shot you, you could have healed yourself. Amar Rav Ashi, therefore it doesn't matter if the victim here has the medicine in his hand, as long as the medicine is available in the marketplace. So if I shoot someone or I do something to someone that normally, if we're out in the desert, it would kill them. But if you're near a hospital, if there's medicine somewhere nearby, you can get better. So then you have a responsibility to go get that medicine and get better. And therefore, I am not liable to punishment. I may have to pay for your damages, for the bill, for the medical bill, and for the pain, all that. But it's just damages. It's not murder. And if you just are lazy and you don't go and get medicine and die, that's not my fault. Amar le Rav Acha bered Rava Rav Ashi nizdamenu lo samandi mahu amar le hare yasa mi bet din zakai. And Rav Acha, the son of Rava, asked Rav Ashi. Rav Ashi says, okay, if it's available in the marketplace, then I'm not liable. But what if it's not available in the marketplace? At the time I shoot you, there's no medicine around. Okay, I shoot you and I give you this wound that you would die from. And then afterwards, all of a sudden, by surprise, some caravan comes through and they happen to have medicine that can help you. But what about that case? But here you can't say at the time that I shot you, the medicine was available, because actually wasn't available then. So what do we say about that? And his answer is, no, he goes free from court, because in the end, the person, even if they did die because they didn't take the medicine or whatever, but the medicine became available before he died, in time for him to take it, and he didn't take it. So that medicine showing up then saves me from capital punishment. So they used to have a game, kind of like a handball, where you take a ball or some rocks, because sometimes it was a heavy rock, and they would bounce it on a wall. Here's actually an ancient stadium, an ancient Mesoamerican ball court, and here's in Mexico some kind of basketball thing. So they had these games in ancient times, and in the times of the Talmud they had this kind of handball game, and it worked like this. I would, if I'm one of the players, I would take this ball and I would come close to the wall and throw it hard against the wall, and it would bounce far back. And you have to catch the ball and then throw it at me and get me out. And then we take turns. So it sounds like a great fun game. And the idea is that you bounce the wall and you do it with precision to make sure that the other person won't catch it or it will go far away, so I have time to run away. Okay, so people were bouncing these rocks or big balls against the wall. And Rava says, let's say I throw a ball at the wall and it goes back and kills someone. I am liable. We're assuming that I did so on purpose. Right? I have good aim and I want to kill that person, so I do it through a bounce. Nevertheless, I am liable. And there's a baraita that was taught exactly the same as Rava said. People who are playing ball and they kill someone, if they do it on purpose, then they get capital punishment. By mistake, they go into exile. Sometimes it happens in baseball. The pitchers, they're throwing a ball at 100 miles an hour, thrower, and it could hit the batter. Sometimes you wonder, it happens that they do it on purpose, or we're not sure. If you can prove they did it on purpose, and let's say he wasn't wearing a helmet, and the pitcher kills the batter, and he did it on purpose, he would be liable. So there he's throwing it directly, but it would be the same thing if he bounced it off someone. He's an expert at this and he has good aim, then one would be liable. Of course, if it's a mistake, it could happen. Then, if it was negligent, he would have to go to Ira Miklat. So these are all important cases. All right, B'shogeg golin peshita. Now we ask about this. Isn't that obvious? If I throw a ball at someone or bounce it off something and it kills them, but it was by mistake, it's still negligent. I should have looked around more carefully to see who's walking. So isn't that obvious that I wouldn't get capital punishment, but I would have to go to Ir Miklat? And the answer is, yes, that one is obvious, but I needed the whole baraita to teach me the other law, that when I do it on purpose, I get capital punishment. I might think that the warning is a warning in doubt. The law is that in order to get capital punishment, someone has to warn you. And they have to warn you, don't you know, you're about to kill someone. But we can only give a warning if it's pretty much for sure that I can accomplish the thing that I'm about to do. But we might have thought that bouncing something off the wall, it's very hard to have proper aim. And who says I'm going to actually kill him? Who says it's going to rebound with that kind of strength and go and kill someone? So since you might have thought it's not so likely that I'll be able to kill someone, so the warning is not a sure warning, because we don't really think that it's going to happen, and therefore the Braita teaches not so. These professional handball players, they know precisely. It's like playing billiards, right? We know the exact bounce. It's going to bounce off 4 walls and hit 3 other things and get the ball exactly where he wants it to go. And the same thing is over there. You can be sure if he's bouncing it in this particular direction with the strength, he knows that it can actually kill someone. And therefore, if he does it on purpose, he would be, in fact, liable to capital punishment. So bouncing is considered a direct force. Tane Rav Tachlifa bar Ma'arva kamed Rabbi Abu kegon elu hamisachakin bechagor shehargu toch 4 amot patur chutz 4 amot chayav. And now we have Rav Tachlifa from Eretz Yisrael taught the following braita on the same subject. Those who are playing ball and that killed someone, so it depends. If they throw it within 4 amot and they kill someone, they're not liable. If they're throwing it longer than 4 amot, they are liable. Now we wonder why. What's the difference between shorter distance and longer distance? And it shouldn't be opposite. If it's shorter distance, it's easier to aim and get the person. And so Ravina asks Rav Ashi, what's the case? If I want to throw it I intend to throw it in a short distance and I kill someone, I should be liable even if it's a short distance. And if I don't want it to go a long distance and, by mistake it slips and it goes a long way, and I kill someone, but I didn't intend it to, so then I shouldn't be liable. It should all go based on one's intention. So what's the difference if it's short or long? And the answer is we're talking about a typical case. And usually when people are playing this game, they want it to go far. So they're going to come right up to the wall and throw it hard against the wall so that it will bounce and go far, because that's how you win, by making it go far so the other person cannot catch it. And therefore, if it goes a short distance and kills someone, clearly I didn't intend. It just slipped and I didn't get a chance to throw it properly. So that means I did it by mistake. Whereas if it goes long, then that's what I wanted it to do, and it kills someone. So that we assume is intentional and therefore would be liable. And now we're going to ask from a couple of sources about whether bouncing is called a person's direct force, and it applies to some other halachot. Urminhu hamekadesh v'nafal kiddush al yado or al asad v'achar kach nafal lashoket pasul. If someone is preparing the para aduma mixture, and so you have water and you have to put the ashes into the water. And the ashes have to come directly from the container of ashes and go directly into the water. And they can't, touch anything else along the way. So if a person is mikadesh, that means he's sanctifying, preparing this, and some of the ashes falls on his hand or on the side of the vessel, and then from there bounces into the water, it's no good. It has to go directly, using his strength, from the vessel into the water, and here it's bouncing. So here, don't we see that bouncing is not considered direct force? And if it's not considered direct force here, then also regarding murder, bouncing should not be a direct force, right? If something just comes out of nowhere and kills someone, or some different direction, that's not from my direct force, so then I'm not responsible. And the answer is Hacha Ma'eskinan Beshotet. No, when the Mishnah says, Mishnah Masechet Parah says it's no good, we're talking about where it trickles, or falls on the side. It doesn't bounce. It's going in a slow way. So I'm pouring the ashes in, and then a little bit gets on my hand, and then slips down. It's not bouncing. Or a little bit gets on the side, and then slips off and goes into the water. So that's not called bouncing. That's just, it didn't go directly in. And that's why it's not as bad. But if it really did bounce, I have this good aim and I can get the ashes to bounce off with force and go in, then it's from my force, and that will be okay. Tashema, machat shehu shaya netuna al acheres. Let's say I have a pin and it's tameh, tumat met. In order to make it tahor, I have to sprinkle it with para aduma water. Just like a person goes from tameh to tahor, from tumat met with paraduma, so two items. So I have this needle, and the needle is on a earthenware shard. And then the Kohen comes and he sprinkles the paraduma water on in that area. But we're not sure, did the sprinkling, the paraduma water, go directly on the needle? If it did, then the needle is tahor. That's good. But safek al acheres v'izau umisa aleha hazato pasul. But we're not sure because maybe it actually landed on the clay, and it bounced off of it and then went on the needle. And so, since we don't know which one happened, so the sprinkling is not good, and he's going to have to do it again. What do we see from here? That bouncing is not called by his force. In order for something to become tahor, it has to be sprinkled directly from the force of the Kohen's hand onto the item that you want to make tahor. And here we see if it's bouncing, then that's not considered tahor. So too, regarding murder, bouncing should not be considered direct force, and I shouldn't be liable if I bounce a ball and kill someone. However, Rav says, don't read it misa, which would be bouncing, but masa, which is it's there. And so the safek is not nothing to do with the bouncing. In fact, if it definitely bounced, that would be okay. Bouncing may very well be a direct force. The problem is we find that it's wet. So now we're not sure. Did it get wet directly from the sprinkling? Or did the water fall on the earthenware shard and then it just rolled down to the needle, and that's how the needle got wet? And so rolling down, that's clearly not from the force of the Kohen. So that's the problem, and that's why it's not acceptable. But if it was really bouncing is considered direct force. Amara papa, hayman fateh lechavre ve'ashkel aleh bidka demaya gire didehu umechayev hanemil bekoch rishon ava bekoch sheni kedama be'almahu. Rav Papa teaches, if I tie someone up and then I put them on the ground and I go and I divert some water so that the water goes on top of him and suffocates him, I am liable because that's the same as arrows. Just like if I shoot an arrow at someone, here I'm tying them up and I'm shooting water at them and they can't move, and so they die from suffocation from the water, I am liable. However, that's only true if it's from my primary force, but not secondary force. Otherwise, that would be Gerama, which is just a cause, but it's an indirect cause. In other words, if I tie someone up, and then there's a dam right there, and I open up the dam, and from the force of that water, that initial force goes and kills the person, then that's direct, and I'm liable. liable. However, if I leave someone in a wadi or something, and then I go a mile away, and I undo a dam, and then eventually the water comes, that's already too long, too far away, and that's called gerama. It's only indirect, and although still not allowed, and still could be mitabid shamayim, would not be capital punishment. And lastly, v'amar Rav Papa, zarak sror lema'ala, v'alcha listadin v'harga chayav. Let's say I throw a stone all the way up in the air, and then it comes down, but a little over to the side, a few feet over, my friend's standing there, and it hits him on the head, and it kills him. I am liable. If I did it on purpose, I have good aim, I throw it all the way up, and it lands on his head. If I did it on purpose, I am liable, capital punishment. However, more about Rav Asher asked Rav Papa, what's the reason why you'd hold me liable? Is it because it's my force? Is that called direct force? That when I threw it up in the air, if it was my direct force, then it would go up. It would keep going up. And so obviously it's not my direct force. I threw it up. And so if it killed someone on the way up, okay, fine, I'd be liable. But here, it's not going up anymore. That's it. It stopped going up. My force is spent. And now it's going down. It's because of gravity. So go blame gravity. Why should you hold me liable for that? That should be called secondary. And the Papa answers, V'ilav kochohu tezel tachat, ela koach kachushu. Wait a second, the Papa says, if it was not because of your force, then it should go straight down and not to the side. Okay, you threw it up, right? So now you didn't put any force on it. Your force stopped because it stopped going up. It comes down. It should hit my own head. But we see it moves over. If you throw something, it has a horizontal component and also a vertical component and a horizontal component. So it's true, the vertical component of my force stopped and then gravity took over. Fine, I'm not holding him liable because of that, but rather because of the horizontal component. If I throw something, even though I'm throwing it high up in the air, but also over across something, that horizontal component continues. And although it's a weak force, that's true, but it's that weak force that caused the strength and speed of the rock to kill my friend over there. So actually it is my direct force because it's continually moving in the horizontal direction because of my force. And therefore it is, in fact, directly my force that killed my friend. And so here we get a little bit of physics of vectors and taking the velocity of something and separating it into the horizontal vector and the vertical vector. So this is some advanced mechanics that is in the Talmud and makes a big difference whether something is a direct force or not, and it actually makes a difference between life and death. Baruch Adonai Le'olam, Amen ve'amen.